Alright, g'day guys, and welcome back tonight to another Obsidian video. Tonight we're going to be looking at sort of how to make some handouts for your players, and I don't know about you guys, but I've quite often found myself wanting to be able to write player handouts in the language of the NPC that's providing the information to them. So whether it be a note or a treasure map or whatever, I like to try and have, if it's been provided by an orc, I like to be able to write in some sort of orc language or in the Dwarven font, for example. And obviously it's pretty easy to do. There's plenty of fonts out there on the internet for converting just normal keystrokes into fantasy fonts. But it's always nice to be able to do these things inside your campaign manager as well. So I've been looking for a way to do that inside of Obsidian, and sure enough, there is a way. So today we're going to walk through the process on how to do that. So let's jump over into Obsidian and have a look at how we set this up. Alright, so in front of me you can see that I've got the fonts note set up here, and you can see here on the left I've got a bunch of examples that we've been playing around with. Massimo from the Facebook group has set a lot of this up for himself so he can have a nice example, and he's just shown me how to do this, so I thought we'd come along and share it with you guys. So on the left here I've got it in edit mode, on the right I've got it in preview mode, and you can see here that there's a little bit of code here that's effectively changing these things over. And the benefit of this is, you can just type and it converts it. Looks like there are going to be some things it doesn't like full stops, but it's pretty easy to use. So yeah, let's step through how you set this up though. So what you need to do is come down here to settings. We're going to go to community plugins and browse. Alright, and we're going to be looking for, I'm forgetting the name, Obsidian Markdown Attributes. Alright, so Markdown Attributes. Alright, so Markdown Attributes. This is another one by Jeremy Valentine. All the good plugins seem to come from Jeremy, or Javelin as we also know him. So go ahead and install and enable this, this plugin. This is a plugin that I have certainly not got a lot of understanding of what it does. Like I'm not really a coder, I just copy things. But you can see basically it allows you to use attributes at the end of your markdown, which basically enables you to sort of take over them with CSS. So there's a section in here for controlling links and tables and headers and all sorts of cool stuff. But all I know is that this needs to be installed. And I do believe you need to reload your Obsidian afterwards. So easiest way to do that is go to Open Command Palette. I just come up here and type rel and go reload app without saving, and that will reload the application and make sure that that is enabled for you. Alright, but once you're enabled, we're going to go through a bit of a process on how to set this up. And just full disclosure, like this is not necessarily an easy process. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I think the process itself is quite easy, but it's going to be a little bit overwhelming if you try to understand all the text that you see. All right, it's going to be a whole wall of text through this process. So, anyway, let's jump in and have a look. So, the first thing I did was I hit the internet up. I was like, all right, let's go and Google some fantasy fonts. The ones I want are generally, Dwarvish, Elvish, Abyssal, Draconic. They're four of the standards. And I just did a Google for, D&D fonts or fantasy fonts, and I found this post here from Dissimo from 8 years ago. Fantastic post, and it's got links here to 4 of the fonts. Now, there's other fonts down here as well. I will say though that I tried the Magi font and I couldn't get it to work. It's a different type of font file. There's all sorts of different types of fonts in the world. I don't even pretend to start to understand how that all works. But these 4 up here certainly did work. So, your experience may differ depending on the fonts you're trying to use, but these certainly do work. So you just click those links, they open up these sort of tabs here. So We've got this nice Dwarvish font here. We can see this one's free for personal use and you can download it. Then we've got a Iocadic. Alright, and then we've got the Barazad, and you can see down here that you know, these have been used in Wizard of the Coast 4th edition, for example. So fantastic fonts. Anyway, so what you do is you go along and you download them, alright, which of course I have already done. I downloaded them and they come in zip files. Okay, if you double click on one of those zip files, you see that inside is just the OTF files, which are the fonts. Alright, all I did is I right clicked on those and I extracted them. I have 7 zips, so I just go extract to and it comes out, and the folder will come out looking like this. Now you can install this on your Windows machine if you like, just by pressing install, and that will obviously go through and install this on the Windows machine. But we don't need to do it for that. You also note that there's a number of different files in here, so bold, bold italics, italics, and normal. I've only set up the normal ones for myself because they're the only ones I plan on using at this point. Alright, so once you've gone through and you've downloaded your fonts, we now need to basically find a way to share these with Obsidian. And you can do this in a way that you have them on your machine and you host them on your machine. But there is an easier way here, which is to embed the fonts into the CSS file that we're going to create. So for that, we go to this Font Squirrel website. And thank you, Massimo, because he's obviously been able to share this website with me and teach me how to use this. When you first use this website, it's not going to look like this. It's going to be more like this. Very, very basic. You basically come in here and you click Upload Fonts. If we do the DAVEC, alright, that will then upload in the background. There you go. You can upload up to 12 fonts at the same time, by the way, so you don't have to do one at a time. We need to change this to Expert. And then in Expert, we can come down here to base 64 encode. Now, I said before that some of my fonts didn't work. Alright, I think that's probably because of this. Like, I think you've actually got to select the font format that you need to use, or you know, basically whatever format your font is, you need to probably select it up here in order for it to work. These ones are what I'm working with now, do work in just a WAF formatting, so that works fine. But down here under CSS, you need to click base 64 encode. Okay, so tick that. Alright, I've ticked remember my settings. You've got to click the agreement to say yes, the fonts I'm uploading are legally eligible for web embedding. We're not actually embedding these on websites, we're just using them on our own home machines, so there's no issue here. And click download your kit. That will then process the font and turn it into a web embed file, which is effectively just a CSS file. Alright, there we go. Download the web font kit. The file we're looking for, like everything in here, we don't need anything other than this style sheet. Alright, so we open up the style sheet. No, let's just get rid of you, sorry. We open up the style sheet and this is what it's going to look like. And this is where I was saying, like, this wall of text, it just hits you in the face and says, what are you trying to do? You don't understand this, go away. All we need to do though, and I am using Notepad++ here, by the way, for my editing of CSS files. It just makes it easier to read the text. It adds in this ability to drop this, for example. You could do this just in your Windows Notepad though. But what we need to do is we need to grab a copy of the data from here. So everything from just before the @ all the way to the bottom, I'm just going to hold shift and click at the very bottom of the file, making sure that I select everything including that very last bracket, and I'm just going to copy that. Alright, so Control C or right click copy. So you don't need the generated by Font Squirrel, just everything from there. Then what we're going to do is we are going to go over to Obsidian. And we're going to, from Obsidian, we're going to go into our snippets folder. So .obsidian, then snippets folder. And this is where we need to create a CSS file that's going to host the data that we're creating. Now I've already made one. fantasyfonts.css, that's the one I've created. But just for the purpose of this video and showing you how to do it, we're just going to right click and create a new text document. I'm going to call it my font, and I'm going to change the txt to CSS. press enter, click yes because I do want to change the extension to make this a CSS file. So now I've got an empty text file effectively, and I'm going to paste the data from my style sheet into here. So everything from the @font face down to the closing curly bracket. And the way you know you've got this is if you minimize that, it should take everything from there. Alright, so then we go, and we need a little bit of extra code here, and I'm going to include this in the description when I publish this. What we do is we come down here and we add this a little bit of extra code. And just to walk you through what we're doing here is we are effectively using two sections of code. The font face is my font. That is the font that's been embedded in this file. At the bottom is a little bit of code that says this is how I'm going to interact with this code when it gets to Obsidian. So I'm going to call it in Obsidian using my font. Alright. When my font is called, what I want to do is I want to display this font. So I'm going to come up here to the font family, grab the name, alright, so that I'm not getting the little commas on the end, just the name, then come down here and paste that into here. Okay, the font size is optional, you don't need it, but this is the code that you need to put in, and as I said, I'll create a copy of this so you can replicate it yourself. But what it's saying is when my font is used, I'm going to call this font and I'm going to change the paragraph that this is called on to this font because that's what this is saying. So we go ahead and save that. And now obviously we've saved that into Obsidian. So now if we come back to appearance or settings appearance, come down to CSS snippets and click reload, we should now see my font. And if I turn that on, that means I'm now enabling that CSS. I can then shut that down. Alright, and if we come down here and say, this is my font example, note that I'm just writing text here, none of this is actually required. This section here is the bit that's doing the call. Alright, so if we change this to my font, notice that instantly that text changed. Alright. And just to walk you through how flexible this is, let's say that you have a font that's used by multiple races. My second font. Alright, well we can just create that section of code again with a different name, so that way when we come in here, we can actually get my second font working as well. Now where this is beneficial, and the reason why I'm showing you this is if we have a look here, the same font is used for dwarves, giants, gnomes, orcs, and the primordial. Alright, so basically I want the ability to write that, but what I don't want to do is have to type in all of those every single time. So I've just replicated that content. Alright, so I can type in Dwarvish, I can type in Giant, I can type in Gnomish, I can type in Orc, whatever. Right, you get the idea. By having this code replicated a couple of times, it means that I kind of just give myself that extra flexibility, because the one thing I don't want to happen is I don't want to be creating a handout for a bunch of gnomes and go, oh, what was the Gnomish language? Oh, I can't remember. Have I done that one? I haven't. I've only got a Dwarvish in here. Damn it. Alright, because if I only add Dwarvish, then I'm not going to know that Gnomish is connected. So I've just set myself up for success by saying, let's just replicate this a couple of times. Now I can use it moving forward. Now, just to sort of throw this out there as well. If we kind of think about the previous videos, obviously one of the plugins that I'm quite fond of is Templater. Templater is amazing. And what I recommend you do, if you are using this sort of stuff all the time and you can't remember how to type this, don't remember, just don't bother. All you need to do is come in here and in your templates folder, if you haven't seen the video on templates, I recommend you go back and do it. You can see here that I've made a format font orc text template. And inside that I've typed the code for enabling that there. So it's just, curly brackets dot orc curly brackets. This is defined in my fantasy fonts file. Alright, so now what I can do is I can come in here to my paragraph, I press Alt-T, which is my shortcut for opening up my templates list, and I'm going to just type in font, and I can see I've got my alt text. So now I have my font, which is now in alt text. Alright, nice and easy. So yeah, that's pretty much how you go about embedding your own custom icons in there. Hopefully that's been useful for you. You will need to obviously make sure you've got Obsidian Markdown attributes installed, and I'll provide some links in the description below on the websites that you can use to obviously make this all happen. But yeah, hopefully it unlocks the ability for you to use this in your own vaults, and let us know if you make anything cool with it. So anyway guys, hope you've been enjoying the content. If you are enjoying this, please do like and subscribe using the buttons below. Obviously a massive huge thanks to all of my patrons. I post all of my tutorials over on Patreon, so if anyone wants access to my tutorials and my demo vaults and all that sort of stuff, feel free to pop on over there and have a look. Without further ado guys, have a great night, and I will speak to you all on the forums.